Hello, everyone. I'm John Euler. This is Journey to Healing. How do you know if you are dealing with something that is a little too much, like almost me trying to figure out electronics here? How do you know if you're dealing with something that is becoming too overwhelming? You feel like this? Feel like this gal? Well, if you do, then have we got a show for you, because we're going to help you discern whether or not what you're dealing with is in the here and now, or maybe there's something underneath the surface. And we will find out how to discern that next on this edition of Journey to Healing.
Welcome to Journey to Healing. Do you find yourself discouraged, troubled, in need of healing, but not sure where to turn? John Euler, a licensed professional counselor, is here to help. John has more than 25 years of professional experience helping people deal with the issues that keep them emotionally and spiritually stuck. There is help. There is hope. There is a God who loves you and wants to help you find peace and strength. And John Euler is here to help you find that on this edition of Journey to Healing.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Euler. This is Journey to Healing, and we are doing a deep dive into some of the issues that will hinder healing, that will actually hinder the grief and loss process. We are in an extended series on dealing with grief and loss, but we're doing a deep dive into the issue of those things that will keep us stuck, and that actually has to do with a lack of boundaries. So we have been looking at various aspects of boundaries. We will continue. If you would like to kind of catch up and look at what we have been looking at as far as different aspects of boundaries, what makes it difficult to have boundaries, who do you need to have boundaries with? We looked into that extensively. If you have people in your life that tend to take you for granted, then you are going to have issues. So we looked at what Jesus called pigs. There's another word for those kind of people. Those are called dogs, as well as fools. So we looked at that in depth. You can access those programs on SurvivorSupport.net under podcasts. That will direct you actually to my podcast channel, and you can subscribe so that as I add additional podcasts, as we put these recordings up, you will be notified. Because of the intensive nature as far as what we're dispensing, what we're teaching, unfortunately, we're not going to be taking a lot of comments right now, but we will have in an upcoming program a dog barking in the background. That's what we'll have. But we will have a question and answer session. So we're going to be looking at right now a continuation of what we have been dealing with, which is the issue of boundaries. How do you implement boundaries? What are involved? So we ended last time by looking at some of the mistaken notions, but I wanted to develop something that hopefully is going to be very helpful for you. Because in dealing with the distractions in our lives, so you can hear in my home studio, we have Stanley the dog. So we'll bear with Stanley. But that's a good example that you can have things that are in the background that you don't even know. Maybe they're not quite as noticeable as a barking dog in your home environment, but maybe they are certain sources of stress. And so the question is, how do you know? How do you know if you have something that's going on? Well, we're going to look at a previous version of a film clip of an old TV program called The Carol Burnett Show. And we're going to analyze that, but we're going to show how, if we're not aware of how we're being impacted in the here and now, that we can begin to stuff stuff, and we think we're doing okay, but meanwhile, on the inside, what is happening? Well, it's not mild, that's for sure. So depending upon what is happening around me and maybe who I'm subjecting myself to, I'll tell you exactly what's going on. You may have the equivalent of a 400,000-pound explosion going on under the surface, depending upon what you're dealing with. And in my work with clients, oftentimes, whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression, certainly if it has to do with panic attacks, if it has to do with compulsions, typically they're not aware of, though they're all very bright. All my clients are very bright, actually. But they're disconnected from their emotions. So they're unaware of the fact that when they are around certain people, certain things really are happening when they are on the receiving end of being disrespected. And so they think they're doing okay, when in reality, something's going on under the surface. So I thought I would use an analogy that I just saw today, or use a film clip. And I want you to watch, because there's a little boat. There's a little boat that's floating on the water. This was a test of the kind of the seaworthiness or shock proof of the USS Gerald Ford. But as we watch this little boat. I don't know how in the world would do this, but we'll have a little boat, and let's pretend you're in the boat and you're around people that are negatively impacting you. And let's find out what happens if you get around a pig. Did you see what happened? There was some energy under the surface. Now we're going to look at that from another angle.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Do you ever feel like that? If you're disconnected with your feelings, you actually don't consciously feel that. I'll tell you what you feel. You feel anxiety. Now, what is anxiety? Anxiety is actually adrenaline. So when you start to experience a panic attack, when you experience anxiety, when you experience compulsivity, how about emotional eating? Have you ever been around family? Have you ever been around some people? And then afterward, you find yourself, and it just doesn't have to be eating. So afterward, you find yourself being compelled, almost like something is acting on you with power. So we're going to watch another angle of really what's going on under the surface. It kind of almost like explodes. We'll see if this works. They before you know it, you're talking to them, and oh my gosh, they overreact. And you ask yourself, what the heck's happened? Everything was fine, and this person just kind of flew off the handle. What is that about? Well, what that's about is you have things under the surface. The stronger you are and the more you have become used to disconnecting with your emotions, you don't even know that there's things that are sort of exploding under the surface. You're just pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and you're continuing. So that's commendable, but look what's happening on the inside. And the less you are aware of the source of that, all that energy, those explosions happening, guess where they're going? They're going down inside of you. Your body is absorbing it. There's a book called The Body Keeps Score. So if you've ever been through trauma, what you've been through are multiple explosions, but you can't let them out. So what do? You kind of stuff them. And you keep stuffing and you keep stuffing. Well, we looked at last time an example of some family dynamics. And we're going to look at that again because I want you to watch the progression. Some of you will be able to relate to this. Thanksgiving, at Christmas time, holidays, 4th of July is coming up. Some of you may be getting together with family. Some of you may be getting together with family that you really shouldn't. So we're going to watch this clip and watch how this family, primarily Carol Burnett, watch what happens to her and watch how it builds. And we're going to then superimpose little explosions just for dramatic effect.
Well, Ed, did you enjoy dinner?
Great. Just great.
Good. You know, I think even Mama enjoyed it. Do you think my pot roast might have been the teensiest bit dry, though?
No, it was fine. Just right.
You know, Ed, I think Mama's been getting a lot mellower lately. I mean, ain't this been a pleasant evening so far?
Sure has. I thought for sure she'd something, though, about that dry pot roast.
What? Oh, Mama!
Well, I was just saying what a pleasant visit it's been this time around.
This time around.
Mama, did you get the boys to bed okay?
Oh, those two are just precious, you know. They asked me if I'd read them a bedtime story, and I said, you think you deserve a story when your room is such a mess? And they said, well, Mama lets us keep it this way. And I said, well, your mama may like to live in a garbage can, but I don't, so let's just clean this mess up. So I made a little game out of it, you know. Eunice, have you ever thought of that? I mean, making a game out of cleaning up that pigsty you call her bedroom?
Hey, you two! I was thinking maybe we ought to have a little fun tonight for a change and play a little parlor game.
What?
Hey, you remember Sorry? You remember how we used to sit for hours and play Sorry? Why don't we do that?
Thank you, Eunice. I think I'll just sit here and stay out of everybody's way, try to find something to read. If I can find anything worth reading. Liz gives Jackie black eye in feud over Latin lover. Who brings these trashy magazines into this
Now,
house
Mama,
anyway?
Mama, some of them articles is authenticated.
Well, I suppose they'll keep printing them as long as there are people brainless enough to read them.
Well, I'm very sorry that I don't have the Encyclopedia Britannica around here for you to peruse through. But after all, I did fix us a nice pot roast this evening, and I bought that real expensive frozen dessert and everything just so we could have a good time. And I thought maybe instead of just sitting around reading, we could all be together and have some fun and play a little game of Sorry. And I took all these little men out of the box. But if you want me to, I'll put all these little men right back in the box, and we won't have to play.
Let's play.
Come on, Ed, let's play.
Oh, please, stupid. That's a baby game.
Ed, please.
Anybody want beer?
Yeah, that hit the spot, Ed. I think I still got a piece of that dried out pot roast stuck in my throat.
Oh, a double. Oh, I get to move a man out. Oh. No, Mama, don't do that. Now, you threw a double. Now, don't use a double to move a man that's already out. You see, you got to use a double to get another man out.
I won't do this one.
Well, don't do that because you will want to. Well, all right. The dumb move. Mom, it's your turn. Oh, now, Mom. When you land on that opponent, you pick up this little bell and you ring it and you say, sorry. And then that opponent has to go right back to where he started, see? You pick up the bell and you go, sorry. Because, Mama, there's a little yellow fella right here that's just dying to be landed on.
Sorry! I'm ready to go right back to start. I like this game.
See, Mama? Ed knows how to play this game. Ed shows no mercy.
Okay, when you overreact because you've been stuffing stuff, then who's at fault? You are. And then that adds insult to injury. So probably what's happened is you've been hurt. Now you respond out of that hurt. We call that emotional reactivity. And then what happens? You look crazy. You look like the foolish person. So we'll see a little bit later, again, a little more Carol Burnett watching as it builds. It's supposed to be a fun parlor game, a little fun family time, and what happens? It turns out to be anything but fun. So it's important to know that when you feel things on the inside, if you're detached from your emotions, you will feel the effects of adrenaline. That's that'll come out as anxiety. You think you're anxious, but you're really not. You're feeling adrenaline. You stay in that state long enough, and then all the energy that's going to push that down, that's being required to push that down, that will manifest itself in a way as depression. So if you're depressed, where's your energy? It's being used to keep a lid on things. So we're making our way through what are some of the things that will prevent us from having boundaries. So Eunice, she has Mama, she has Ed, they're over. They never make it through any activity without any fights. So the question is, why do they keep doing this? Why do they keep getting back together? Well, they say we're family. Well, but chipping away at people is not healthy, and that is not loving. And that is not what family does. And so maybe you are substituting proximity for intimacy, and in the process, you are experiencing a lot of abuse. You're experiencing people that are chipping away at you, and that's not healthy. So what are some things that will keep us stuck in that cycle, keep us around people that we may not do the best in being around them? One of those things is mistaken notions, and we've been looking at that. The previous programs, you will see a list that we've been working through. So I recommend, again, go on to SurvivorSupport.net under podcast, and you will start to see what happens when you don't have boundaries and what prevents that. So picking up where we left off, mistaken notion that it's loving to keep the peace at the expense of rocking the boat. Now that's an interesting analogy considering we just looked at rocking the boat. But in this case, rocking the boat means speaking the truth. So it doesn't mean exploding any longer. It means what happens when you actually find your voice and you start to address issues? Well, people aren't going to like it very much. The selfish people, they won't like it. Why? Because they are benefiting from keeping things this way. Think about Mama. Now, Mama loves being mean and nasty. There's no other way to put it. She's just driven to say hurtful comments. And so she's not going to change. She's been that way. So if you're Eunice and you wait for Mama to finally be nice, guess what? You're going to be waiting a long period of time. Okay? So maybe the boat needs to be rocked by speaking truth, doing it in a responsible fashion. Maybe there's junk at the bottom of the pot. And so maybe it finally needs to be stirred if you're going to be impacted by what you ingest. So using that idea that if you're at the same table, so to speak, and you're eating the same stuff, and if you're having to choke on truth, then maybe it's time to stir things up. Maybe leaving well enough alone means tolerating fools. We are not called to tolerate fools. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 19 and 20 clearly says that we should not be dealing with fools. And again, that's a 2,000-year-old concept, not so much like what we see in the modern vernacular. But a fool was the equivalent of someone who has a hardened heart by choice. Psychology comes along and starts painting the idea, understandably, and it's a good concept, of white-collar psychopathy. So if you're dealing with someone without a conscience, if you're dealing with someone without empathy, without remorse, that has no problem watching you be in emotional pain, you're dealing with someone that's actually very dangerous, meaning they will keep it up. So by nature, love never allows immature people to remain immature. It is not loving to lower the bar and the expectations and just continue to allow the kind of crud we saw at that table. People are hurting one another. There's hurtful comments, and we'll see on the other side of the break, we'll see part 2 of that clip, where we'll actually see some property destruction. That Eunice gets so angry, she starts tearing some furniture up, and so that's never healthy. It's never appropriate. But what happens? She keeps stuffing stuff. So by nature, again, love never allows immature people to remain immature, does not allow difficult people to remain stuck at a low level of maturity. If you're going to honor someone, then do not treat them as less than capable, especially less than capable as they really are. The way you honor someone is to treat them as capable and raise the bar. But if you do not speak up, then you're not honoring that person. You're actually treating them as incapable. That is no way to improve any sort of relationship. Okay. Selfish people need the opportunity to grow, and oppressors will continue to hurt others by negatively impacting them. So if you don't have boundaries, and if you have a professional grade pig, as we talked about, you can look at the podcast of How Big of a Pig, and then the warthog assessment. That will help you begin to discern to what extent are you dealing with a professional grade pig. We're not calling names, it's an assessment. But someone that is morphed into a pig is not a mild-mannered kind of person. They are very strategic, they know what they're doing, and actually they derive a sense of satisfaction from watching you in pain. That's not loving. So you need to be able to speak truth. You need to be able to confront people. Confrontation, by the way, does not mean a knockdown, drag-out kind of fight. It simply means this: placing the truth in front of. If you are in a relationship that you cannot be honest, then number one, you don't even know the extent to which you have a relationship with them. If the extent of the relationship you have with that person is dependent upon you withholding truth, then you don't even know if you have a real relationship. So if you don't risk, you'll never know what's true. So maybe it's high time that you begin to risk. Risk what? Speaking truth. Do so in a reasonable fashion. But part of that is also in finding your voice. Because your preference, your opinion, your thoughts, your future, they actually matter. Mistaken notions. Here are some additional things that will keep you stuck. Mistaken notions that children are better off raised with both parents, no matter what. This is an entire program worth this topic, but we'll touch on it briefly. Do children ideally need both parents? Of course. I think most people around the world would agree that having a mom and a dad, a biological mother and father, I make no apologies about that. There are unique differences all the way down to the genetic structure of men and women. Men cannot be women, and they can't take the place of women, and women cannot take the place of men. Now, is that a sexist? It's not. We get messed up when we get messed up with that. Think about what's happening with the Olympic trials right now. We have a guy that is supplanting women who've been working for years to go into the weightlifting activity, the weightlifting end of sports, and this guy's stepping in to do what? He's going to take all their medals away. He's going to break all their records. Why? Because something as basic as maleness and femaleness is being denied. And by the way, that's what cults do. Cults will get you to deny what's right in front of your face. And every cult is led by a sophisticated manipulator, or what's called a white-collar psychopath. Every cult is led by a selfish person who knows how to manipulate. And what we're seeing in this day and age, this modern situation right now that is oftentimes referred to as the trans movement, you have tremendous manipulators that are just loving life because they're getting people to deny what's right in front of their face. And what's sad is this: it sets good people and vulnerable people up to be used and abused and manipulated. Nobody benefits. Nobody benefits when a manipulator is able to have his way with impunity. So you have financial predators, you have sexual predators that are having their way with vulnerable kids, and now in the Olympics and women's sports, you have them erasing women. A little secret behind the scenes is part of the reason that's going on is men who are porn saturated, because no man is going to think it a reasonable thing to dress as a woman unless he's accessed a lot of porn. He knows that in order to eventually access minors for sexual exploitation, manipulation, grooming, possible human sex trafficking, they have to get women out of the way because women will be protective. So that's part of what's going on, and that's why I'm very concerned about that. So, what are the greatest hindrances to boundaries? We're going to look at one or two, and then we will continue on the other side of the break. So what are the greatest hindrances to implementing boundaries? One is a lack of certainty that the person is a genuine pig, that they're actually a fool. If I'm not sure that the person truly is selfish, that they truly know what they're doing, then I'll have a hard time with tough love. And a lot of people have a mistaken notion about this. A lot of people believe that it's possible to get to a point where you actually believe your own stuff. Meaning you've lied so long to other people and yourself that you can't discern any longer what's true. That sounds like a reasonable argument, but the truth is this. They always know what they're doing. They just don't want you to figure it out, and they count on you never forcing the issue in a healthy way. So no one gets to a point where they believe their own lies. They just get to a point where they think that you actually believe it, and so you'll never confront them on it. And we will pick it up at this point next time on the other side of the break.
Are you or someone you know a survivor of abuse and wondering where to turn for trustworthy help and insight into the effects of such abuse? Ever wish you had access to a resource that could help you continue your progress in healing? SurvivorSupport.net is that resource. Developed by John Euler, a seasoned therapist with years of experience working with sexual abuse survivors, SurvivorSupport.net is a one-of-a-kind resource to help you understand the impact of abuse and to help you understand the nature of those who harmed you in order to help you gain clarity and continue healing. If you are interested in speaking with John Euler about your situation or in having John conduct a consultation or a training for your church or organization, SurvivorSupport.net serves as a convenient method of contacting him. Our program, Journey to Healing, is made possible through the generous donations of viewers like you. There are many opportunities and needs that Survivor Support is attempting to meet, and your monthly support or one-time gift would be extremely helpful as we seek to meet those needs and opportunities. Simply visit SurvivorSupport.net and you will see the link to donate on the homepage. We thank you.